and dismiss that. But this recording will then be posted and made available for others to listen to, as well as each of you following up on this conversation. With that, I will turn it over to Christian. Hopefully you are ready to go. Let us know if you need some help. We can pull it up on our screen if you need.
Hi, Thomas. Hi, all. Good afternoon. Can you see it for the moment? I think I have some troubles in sharing. So maybe if you can go ahead.
We can see your window, but not the window with the presentation. Would you like us to pull it up?
Yes, please.
Okay, if you click on the stop sharing component, we'll pull it up for you.
Yeah, that's great.
Thank you. I believe Valentina, do you have it ready to go? Otherwise, I'll bring it up. Thank you.
Can you see my screen?
Yes, we can. Thank you very much. Okay, Christian, take it away.
Okay. Yes. Good afternoon. I'm very happy that this is finally happening. We've been trying for quite some time to get this organized, and now I'm very pleased to welcome you in my living room. What I want to do is to start a little bit with a general policy background. So what is our general policy goal towards 2050, and then to explain in more detail what the Innovation Fund is about, how you can prepare for the Innovation Fund when we will start our first call. Yes. So what we asked ourselves at the Commission is it possible that in 2050 we have a European economy that on balance doesn't emit greenhouse gas emissions anymore? And the answer is yes. We believe it's possible. And the even better answer is we think there's not only like one steep, narrow path to it, but there are many more pleasant roads how we can get there, how we can get to a climate neutral economy in 2050 that also gives all of us a much better quality of life. And you can see here, all our thinking evolves around these seven building blocks. The first one is energy efficiency. So we think that we can reduce our energy consumption by another third from now to 2050. And we see there mainly the potential in the building sector, so in heating and cooling. So currently we renovate about 1% of our building stock. And if we get that to 3 percentage points, we would be getting there to, as I said, to again significantly reduce our energy consumption. The second one, which is kind of our backbone of the strategy, is we think we can have in 2050 a completely decarbonized electricity system. So no fossil fuels would anymore be used in 2050 to produce electricity. And we are very bullish on this, based on the big cost reductions that we've seen with wind and solar over the last years. And we believe this is going to continue. So that also from a competitiveness point of view, renewable energy will in the future be the cheapest energy available. And then we are also very positive about energy storage, be it with batteries, be it with hydrogen. So we expect also here to see quite some cost savings, so that by 2030, an electricity system built on renewables and on storage should be cost competitive. Then, thirdly, and I think this is in particular for cities an important one, is mobility. And there we have quite a bit of a diverse picture. I think in terms of decarbonized city mobility, we can all imagine how this would look like. With electric cars, with hydrogen buses, with intelligent public transport, with intelligent solutions in the sharing economy, with apps and so on. I mean, you can see a lot of this already here around. So then if we go to long-haul transport, there are still, I think, several technological options in the race, again, for shorter distances. Batteries for longer distances, hydrogen trucks. One big discussion is also always e-fuels, to a lesser extent, maybe still also biofuels. Then one sector where we see a huge potential is maritime transport. So we are there also very bullish, because I think that's a good opportunity to apply hydrogen or ammonia as energy carriers. And the most difficult one is aviation to decarbonize, because we just don't have technological solutions right now. So the discussion would again here be about e-fuels or biofuels. Then the fourth one, and that's a particularly important one for Europe, is about industry. So I think we still consider ourselves to have the global leadership in industry, and I think we want to maintain that. And the good news is also here that there are a lot of possibilities for a more sustainable and climate neutral industry. Think about the electrification of heat, think about the use of new feedstocks like hydrogen, like bio feedstocks. Think about all the ideas that are around circular economy. The fifth one is infrastructure and interconnections. But here, not only think about new electricity networks, but also think about how can we use gas networks for the transport of hydrogen, also then networks to produce CO2. CO2 itself, the molecule, will be an important one for the circular economy and how we can reuse the CO2 more often. The sixth one, that's a particularly important one. And this is the bioeconomy. And what do we do in the future with our forests, with our land? If we want to arrive at the climate neutral economy in 2050, we need to store much more CO2 in our forests, in our land. And that's not an easy one, because we want so many things from our land. We still need it to feed a growing global population. And we need it also as a feedstock, in particular for industry. So think about how you produce clothes in the future out of biofeedstocks, how you use biofeedstocks in chemicals. So we want more from our land, while the land sector is the first one that's most severely affected by climate change. I mean, if you look at the bad harvests that we had over the last 2 years in Europe, if you think about all the wildfires, the droughts, bog beetle, and so on, there's a lot going on, and we need to put a lot more attention to this in the future. And the last one is carbon capture and storage. So we still see a role for that, so that we put a certain amount of CO2 underground. So there are some interesting projects coming up around the North Sea. So we would have 2 storage facilities in near the harbor of Rotterdam and in Norway. And I think in the city context, that could be an interesting one for waste incineration, what to do with the CO2 of the waste incineration. And I've already seen several projects there. So overall, if you look at the next slide, we see steep reductions across the whole economy. So you see here from 2005 to 2050. But what you also see in 2050 is there will still be emissions. So we will not be completely emission-free. And the biggest emitter in 2050 will be agriculture. And there, in particular, the dairy sector. So it will be about cattle and all the gases that come out from there. So we need to offset these emissions. And this is, on the one hand, through the storage in our forests. So this is this thick green line. So we need to increase the capability of our forests to store more CO2. And you see then at the bottom, this little red triangle, and that's about the CO2. So we would see that on balance, we could reach a climate neutral economy in 2050. And of course, this needs a lot of investments. This needs a lot of innovation. And this brings us to the Innovation Fund after this introduction. So what is the Innovation Fund about on the next slide? So what we want companies is to invest now in those technologies that we need in 2050, in hydrogen, in carbon capture and use, in innovative ways, how to manage our traffic, geothermal energy, efficient ways of energy storage, new ways on how to use excess renewable energy. So we have a broad field of applications from renewable energy over carbon capture, use and storage to energy-intensive industries and energy storage. What we know very well is that currently the market conditions are not such that you would invest into these projects. We currently have a carbon price in the EU emission trading system of around 20 euros. And the cost of a lot of these technologies, they start at 70, 80 euros per ton of carbon abated. So there is a financial gap, maybe of 60, 70 euros. And from that, what we basically offer with the Innovation Fund, from that, we can take 60% and finance that. And we hope by this to make it for you more attractive to invest into these technologies. So on the next slide, there are the basic features of the Innovation Fund that I want to quickly run you through. So we will have around at least 10 billion euros available for the next decade. So this is from now, from 2020 to 2030. From where is this money coming? The money is coming from the revenues of the EU emission trading. So we set aside a certain amount of allowances that we will auction over the next 10 years. Depending on the carbon price, we can have 10 billion euros, or if the carbon price increases to 40, 50 euros, we will have 20 billion euros available. And as I said, what we can do with that is we can support 60% of your additional costs. So these are the costs that cannot be covered by the current market prices. And we can cover 60% of the additional capital expenditure. So be it the hydrogen buses, but we can also support 60% of your additional operating costs. So this is the hydrogen that you need to run the buses, and currently hydrogen is still much more expensive than other energy carriers. So and this we can do for 10 years. So we can support you with the capital expenditure, but also with the operating costs for 10 years. And we want to do our first call right now in 2020. So we want to launch it still this summer, if everything goes well. It's not made easier through the current crisis situation, but we are still on track. And then we would close it probably by the end of October. And then we want to have regular calls every year. And before I explain in a bit more our timeline for the first call, let me now go into details on how do we want to run the Innovation Fund. So what makes it that you have a successful project under the Innovation Fund and that you get our funding, and how do we pay out our funding? So I start with two overview slides now. The first one on the selection criteria, but I will go into much more detail on the selection criteria a little bit later. So if you please go up one slide again. Yes, on the selection process. No, two slides. Yes, this one, please. This one, please. Yes, that's good. That's about the selection process. So basically with the Innovation Fund, we have a two-stage selection process. That was a big demand by stakeholders, and we followed that. So we have an expression of interest and a full application. So expression of interest is just about checking, okay, is this project promising in the 2050 perspective? And how are the chances that it can be realized in a quick time? So we are checking, okay, what is the emission avoidance potential? So how much emissions can you avoid with this project? And what is the degree of innovation? Degree of innovation means, okay, is this really a technology, a project, a business model that goes into really a complete decarbonization? So is this something that fits into a 2050 world? And then we look at the project maturity. What do we mean with that? We mean with that, okay, are there reasonable expectations that this project can start within 4 years? So 4 years until financial close, 4 years until the start of the construction. Because once we give the money, we also want to spend it. So we really want to look for projects that are ready to start very, very soon and very quickly with the implementation. So if a project fulfills the first 2 criteria, so large emission avoidance, large degree of innovation, so if you think this is promising, but it's not yet mature, so it would still take, with all the permits and everything, maybe 6-7 years until it can start, we can give project development assistance, so to support the further development of this project. And the project development assistance will be provided by the European Investment Bank. So in cooperation with what they are already doing under the EU Invest, so under their loan program, there they have the EU Advisory Hub. And so we would see there some synergies, and I can explain a little bit later exactly how this project development assistance works. If we consider, okay, your project is promising, and it's also like very likely that it can start very soon, we go into full application, where we would then look in more detail, again in the first 3 selection criteria, but then also at scalability. So this means, is this project, the technology that you use, the business model that you use, can this be replicated? So is this a project that can be applied in all cities across Europe? And then lastly, we will look at cost efficiency. So this means, what are your costs, or how much money do you want from us per ton of CO2 avoided? As I said, I will go in a little bit more detail into the selection criteria in a moment, but on the next slide, let me first explain how we would pay out our grant. Because in this way, we want to pay it out based on milestones. So what we will come out of the selection process is, okay, we say your project gets 100 million euros, and that's a lump sum. So we will afterwards not go into checking your accounts, what are exactly your travel costs, what are your administration costs, and so on. No, this we will not do. What we will look at is, do you reach the milestones that you set yourself? Does this project go ahead and deliver? So 40% of our grant, so of this 100 million, we can pay upfront at financial close. So when you, together with your other investors, so maybe public banks from your member state, maybe the European Investment Bank with a loan, if we all say, okay, yes, this project will go ahead, will start construction, we can give 40%. And these 40% are, except that you reach these milestones, are without strings attached. So this is what we give you upfront. The remaining 60% will depend on that you achieve the emission reductions that you promised us in the first place. So during the operating period of 10 years, you would need to report that you achieve those emission savings that you promised, and only then you will get the full grant. So the full 100 million in our little example. And we can then maybe also in the discussion go in more detail. One can also adapt the different milestones, like for example, for geothermal projects, I understand it's always interesting to have some money for the drilling. So there we would be flexible. But our basic idea is we would pay out the money based on milestones of the project. Okay, now quickly maybe on the next slide, which is the most immediate step, would be the application for the first stage. So what would we want to see from you if you decide to apply this summer to the Innovation Fund? As I said, the first thing we would like to see is, okay, how many emissions will you save? So we developed together with our consultants a methodology. We already had workshops on that. How do you calculate the emission savings from your project? Be it energy storage, be it renewables, be it heating, cooling, be it hydrogen, whatever. So there we will have technologies. And as I said, what you promise here, you need to deliver within the first 10 years of your operation, and you have to deliver at least 75% of that. Otherwise, you wouldn't get the full grant. Degree of innovation this is the place where you can highlight the innovative aspects of your project. And I think what we are very much looking there too is this a project that relatively seen can avoid all emissions? So I think the ones that really go down to 100% emission avoidance would score highest on this criterion. And then, as I said, the last one would be project maturity. And there we want to see, can you reach financial close, start of construction within 4 years from the grant award. And I think you can see it a little bit like on a range from 0 to 100. 100 would of course be, okay, you have already all your permits, you have co-financing, everything, you're just lacking maybe 20-30 million euros, and that you want from us. So that would be, then you would score quite high on project maturity. On the other hand, we would at least expect from you a feasibility study. So is this what we want to do technically feasible? And I think we would also want to see a first business plan that gives us an idea of the financial needs that you have. And most of the projects will be somewhere in between these two extremes, and we would prefer those projects that are more mature, because you can come back to us every year. So we really want to be like a standing facility for the 10 years, and of course those projects that can deliver earlier would have an advantage here. And then to the second phase of the selection, there would be in addition 2 criteria. On the next slide, please. Yes, as I said, we would look at the scalability. So what is the market potential of these technologies? So how can it be applied in other cities, in other regions, and so on? What would you see? What is the role in 2050? But also, like, what are the possibilities at the project level? So maybe you start with a little project on hydrogen, or maybe you have an industry like a steel company in your city that wants to switch to hydrogen. What are the possibilities for sector coupling? So how could you really like build up over the next 10 years an infrastructure in your city that's based on hydrogen? So what is the scale of that, both at the level of your city, but also like across Europe in other cities? And the last one, as I said, would be the cost efficiency. So, and that would be basically, okay, what I said. We will give you guidance how to calculate the additional costs. So those costs that you cannot cover, for example, through the current electricity price. So this excess, from that we can pay 60%. And put this in relation to the cost savings. And on this, you would be judged against other projects. Okay, I think I'm coming now to my last slide. No, I still have two. So this one, yes. As I said, the Innovation Fund can cover 60% of the additional cost. So this may not be enough for a project to go ahead. And we would very much look forward to how can the Innovation Fund be combined with other means of public funding, be it at European level, be it like for the Connecting Europe facility. So the Connecting Europe facility could take care more like of the pipelines, of the infrastructure, of transporting hydrogen to stay with this example, while the Innovation Fund could then maybe finance the trucks or the buses on that. It can clearly also be combined with cohesion funding, I think, which can be interesting for cities. And also there you have it with the InvestEU. So with loan programs from the European Investment Bank, but equally from the EBRD, and of course also with member state funding. So from our side, we would be very open that we find innovative co-financing concepts. But we would also see quite a specific role for us. So we would like to be the ones that take innovative projects that come out of the research area where you already have demonstration projects, where you know in principle, okay, this works, and then we are here to scale that up to a commercial size. And okay, and now my last slide, where I want to give you a final overview a little bit on the timing for our first call. We've done over the last months quite a lot of outreach. We've done a lot of workshops in member states, with industry associations. So we have by now a project pipeline maybe of 200 projects that signal to us an interest for the first call. We've also had during February and March more specific workshops on the methodologies for our 5 selection criteria together with our consultants. So we are wrapping this up and maybe do another one by the end of May, where we can then already explain in quite some detail what we would expect for this 5 selection criteria, and then launch the first call still before summer, with a submission phase maybe of 3 months. So this takes us into October. Then in the first quarter of 21, we could then send out the invitations to the second stage or invite projects for project development assistance together with the EIB. Then have another 3 months for submission for all 5 selection criteria. And if everything goes well, we can award our first grants in the second half of 21. Like, we are still on track on doing this, but with the current crisis, I mean, we still have to take several administrative steps, also together with the member states. So let's hope that the current crisis doesn't carry on for too long. So this may delay us, but for the moment we are still on track. And as I also said, we would over the next months continue to provide a lot of training and guidance. We would provide webinars. We will have a help desk for your questions, so that you could really go well informed into the application for the Innovation Fund. And I think maybe finally to say, I think for the first stage of the application, it's really about an expression of interest. So to see, is this project promising, and how many years do you need until you get to construction? And from that, we want to select the most interesting and most mature ones. But I would hope for a high number of applications for the first call, so that we really see what is out there, and that we can then also further adjust our offer, and also maybe see, okay, which of these projects may fit better for Invest EU for other programs. But I think that's my introduction. Thanks very much for listening, and looking forward to all your questions.
Excellent. Thank you very much, Christian. As described at the beginning, we'll move straight into the project presentations and then create room at the end for questions looking at all of the discussion so far, the DG Klima presentation on the fund, as well as each of the city projects, so that we can look at everything in total and have a conversation around that. While we are pulling up the first project that we'll present, just a couple of things. We will go in order from the program. So City of Vienna first, City of Krakow second, City of Warsaw third, City of Malmo fourth. And again, we'll hold questions to the end, but we'll be capturing those in the chat as we go along.
Tommy, you are muted.
Yeah, somebody muted me. I'm not sure how that happened. So thank you, Vera, for pointing that out as we were going. So we will go through these in order, 15 minutes per. I will let you know when you have 5 minutes left, because we do want to make sure we get through everything and have a chance for some open discussion, dialogue, and some questions to come through in the session, and obviously questions that will carry forward offline, which we will also follow up on. Thomas, I'll let you introduce it, and you have 15 minutes to present. Thanks.
Thank you, Thomas, for the introduction. Can everyone hear me?
Indeed we can. Thanks, Thomas.
Okay. So I will run you through my presentation as quick as possible. My name is Thomas Kreitmer. I work for the Energy Planning Department of the City of Vienna, and our main task is to promote the topics of energy efficiency, renewable energy, and spatial energy planning in Vienna, in order to further develop the energy system in a sustainable way. And as Christian mentioned before, a major focus is on the energy supply of buildings. In the context of this workshop, I would like to present to you a vision and its implementation, and possibly an answer to the question about an innovative building that Christian raised before. As mentioned, the focus of my presentation will be on a residential building of the future. So next slide, please. According to all national and international targets, buildings of the future should be supplied with emission-free energy. Well, that's not enough for a vision yet, but some more qualities. Residential construction should also offer the highest level of comfort all year round, which especially includes its suitability for summer, which is often ignored nowadays. Housing of the future should not only provide living space, but it should provide a living environment. And the energy demand, of course, should be covered by renewable energies. And last but not least, it of course should be no luxury good. It should be affordable for everyone. Next slide, please. in the 22nd district of Vienna, you can find such a building in Mühlgrundgasse. It has been realized, which most people only dare to imagine about in 2050 nowadays. A team consisting of a property developer or building developer, a visionary energy planner, and several architects has created this residential complex that fulfills all the qualities mentioned before and many more, that already fulfills what we hope the 2050 building will fulfill. The project in Mühlgrundgasse represents, in our opinion, a game changer in the field of building energy supply. Next slide, please. It is suitable, comfortable, affordable, and it can also provide network services. The essential components of the energy system include a very efficient building envelope, and I'd like to mention that the air tightness of the envelope is even more important than its the thickness of the insulation. Another main component is the thermal activation of the ceilings, the heat pumps, and a wind farm in Lower Austria, which provides the drive current for the heat pump in form of excess wind power. As the picture shows, heat is transferred exclusively by radiation, which means this system provides very evenly distributed room temperatures everywhere. And despite the urban environment, there is no classic peak load or no classic peak load coverage, or backup system is also not needed. Next slide, please. The sketch in this slide shows the main energy components and the energy flows. I will try to run you through as quick as possible. The whole object is kept in a range of about 22 to 27 degrees all year round via the ceilings. The ceilings have a storage mass of approximately 7,000 tons of concrete. This correlates to about 3 megawatt hours of electrical energy storage, which would cost about €1.5 million. And whereas 1 kilowatt hour of storage capacity in electrical, for example, lithium batteries, costs about €500 per kilowatt hour. The 1 kilowatt hour of storage capacity in concrete costs about less than €1. The ground next to the building serves as energy source, and the majority of the drive current for the heat pumps comes in real time from surplus wind power. All in all, a large part, the biggest part of the heating energy required comes from renewable energies in real time, and only a very small remaining part comes from conventional grid electricity. But this is also hoped to be increasingly generated from renewable sources in the future. Next slide, please. The energy solution is characterized by particularly low power and energy demands, which has a very positive effect on both the investment and also the running energy costs. The energy solution achieves significantly lower life cycle costs than conventional solutions for comparable buildings, for example, gas solutions. Due to the storage mass and the highly efficient shell, the building can maintain its temperature for several days, even without active heating operation. I'm going to show you a graphic in a few slides, which will explain what I mean. And next slide. Here you can see, for example, a classic temperature curve of an existing building, and as you can see, the temperature quickly drops to uncomfortable level when the heating system is turned off at night. And in the morning, the rooms have to be heated back to comfort temperature with rather high power. This temperature behavior is usually still assumed today, even for modern buildings. This leads to far oversized heating systems and uneconomical operation. Next slide, please. In comparison, here you can see modern building and its cooling behavior depending on the type of the heating system. Convective heating with radiators compared to heating with thermal component activation. And this temperature curve is based on a cold, sunny winter week in Vienna, so standard winter week in Vienna. It can be seen that it takes a week until the acceptable lower limit of 22 degrees is reached when heating is stopped. So it doesn't matter whether the building is heated at 6 o'clock this morning or in 4 days in the middle of the night. As described above, the operation of the heat pumps can therefore be controlled as far as possible according to the availability of surplus power of renewable energy. Next slide, please. One very important thing about this system, about this building complex, no rocket science is used in this system. All technologies used are very well established on the market. The special feature in this building is its intelligent combination of storage mass, waste heat from the buildings, and the use of surplus wind power, which results in highly efficient operation. And due to the exact knowledge of the building and a rather constant operation of the heating system, the heating output could be reduced to less than 1/3 compared to classical solutions, which again is good for the economy of the project. The correct dimensioning of the heating load is key for both the efficiency and the economy of the modern building. Next slide, please. With the following slide, I will show you what characterizes the high innovative content. I think you are all provided with my presentation, so I'm not going to read these aspects to you, but I would just like to explicitly name the aspects that are essential for me. The whole building is supplied renewable all year round, also in summer. There is no need for conventional air conditioning, which is also rather important. The life cycle costs, I think I mentioned them, of this energy system are significantly lower than those of conventional energy solutions. And to our knowing, there is no comparable residential complex that pushes the boundaries of sustainability, affordability, and comfort to such a degree as the building in Mühlgrundgasse. Not in Vienna, not internationally. Next slide, please. Conclusion, technical conclusion about what I just presented to you. Maybe to sum up the next two slides, what people mostly only dare to imagine for future buildings of the year 2050 can already be realized through intelligent planning. The technologies are all available, and the need to use them is, as we all know, higher than ever. It only takes a little nerve to break out of familiar patterns and to take a step into the future. Future generations will be grateful if we do so. Heating alone can already, next slide please, heating alone can already save about 150 tons of CO2 emissions per year compared to, for example, same buildings as a applied with gas. And as mentioned before, because of the highly efficient cooling system and the avoidance of conventional air conditioning systems, this solution is likely to reduce emissions by a further 25 to 30 tons of CO2 per year. So, yeah, and as you can see, we only had about additional costs of about 350,000 euro compared to conventional solution. But due to the savings of 110,000 euro each year, because renewable energy is one on site, and it is free. You have an economic break even after 3 years, and savings for the residents of about 1 million euro in 10 years. So next slide, please. Yeah, as the building is only supplied within its property boundaries, the project could theoretically be copied in Vienna without limits, considering an appropriate building density. It would even be possible to build slightly higher and denser, but this would reduce the green spaces between the buildings, or it of course would reduce the green space between the buildings, and possibly you would need to drill deeper probes to get enough energy for the building. And I think, yeah, that's it about this slide. Next slide. I think I made it in time. Yes, I hope this
under the wire. Thank you.
Innovative project has given you a small glimpse of our energy future. And if you have any further questions, as Thomas mentioned before, I think there will be a Q&A round coming soon.
Very good. And Valentina, maybe just the last slide if people want Thomas's contact information. Thank you. Thanks very much, Thomas. Right on time. Appreciate that. We'll move right along next to the city of Krakow. And while we're switching presentations, so introduce Paweł Otsłony, who will be presenting this one. And again, after 10 minutes, if it looks like you need it, I'll give you a little prompt, 5 minutes left, in order to keep us all on track. So Paweł, if you're able to unmute yourself, and we'll get your presentation up, and
yes,
go.
Thank you very much, Tom, for introduction. Good afternoon to everyone. I would like to present the project, which is entitled the Efficient Solar Assistant PVT-based Heat Pump System for Heating, Cooling and Electricity Generation. I am from Crakow University of Technology, and I would like to present our system, which is suitable for residential buildings for both small and large scale. Next slide, please. The objectives of the project are a development and application of heating and domestic hot water preparation system that covers at least 70% of the total yearly energy demand of a building from renewable energy sources. In fact, we can adjust this system to cover 100% easily. Also, we would like to demonstrate the real performance of the innovative, renewable and energy efficient solutions for heating, cooling and domestic hot water preparation in multi-apartment residential buildings, and provide information on the overall system performance to end users. What is also very important, the project demonstrates the system scalability, because we are planning to implement our system for different types of multi-apartment residential buildings. It means, for example, 7, 14, 20, or even 50 apartments, buildings with 50 up from 7 to 50 apartments in 2 different climatic zones, like Poland and like countries like Poland and Italy, to present it both for heating and cooling. Also, what we need is to move the technology level, readiness level, from 7 to 8, because we have now this system tested in 2 demo sites in Poland, but for factories and office building, not for the residential building. So we need to make some adjustments. Also, we would like to elaborate of the competitiveness in the building value chain and its position in growing markets, and also estimate the technical and economic parameters of the system. Next slide, please. In general, the concept of the system is related to the use of solar energy, which is captured by PVT panels. Our idea is to use the sun-tracked PVT panels to allow the highest solar energy gain, and also we convert this solar energy into the heat and electricity. Electricity is used to feed up heat pump, and heat is stored underground in the underground energy storage to increase the COP of the heat pump and in general system efficiency. The heat pump can be used for both heating and cooling. Next slide, please. The heart of the system is the sun-tracked PVT. The sun-tracked PVT, we have both from it electrical and thermal energy. The electrical energy we use to power the heat pump, and the heating, the thermal energy we use to regenerate the ground, which allows to achieve higher temperature at the low size of the heat pump. And we are using also it in underground energy storage unit, a tank which is not insulated and which transfers the heat with the ground. The ground is insulated from the top, and therefore the heat can be stored underground also. We use also sun-tracked solar collectors, from which we store the heat in the underground energy storage, high temperature underground energy storage, which is insulated, and this can be used as a buffer for example, for winter time, or can be used directly for domestic hot water heating in summertime or winter time. But in fact, the very important parameter is the control, which selects the highest temperature of the load fluid of the heat pump to deliver the highest possible temperature and achieve the best COP value. The major novelties of the project are the average yearly COP value higher than 5. Of course, in case where we use floor heating, when we use radiators, it is slightly lower, but it is still over 5. COP is of the heat pump is constant over the heating seasons. This is extremely important because in many heat pump applications, the producers do not tell that, or installators doesn't tell that the COP of the heat pump is decreasing over the years, what causes the energy that we need to pay more for electrical energy. In this case, when we are regenerating the boreholes and use the heat accumulators, we do not have this problem, and the COP can be still high over a few or even 10 after 10 consecutive seasons. Also, what is very important, we are using the smart sun-tracked PVT. This is developed by one of the companies which are cooperating with us, and they are producing 30% more electrical energy and 60% more thermal energy than the existing solutions. Our system is demonstrated in Limanova in the factory of Chamara company, which is a partner of this project also. And therefore, this company is also very, very interested in our solution. And next slide, please. The actual level is 7. So here I would like to present the economic analysis of the project. We are doing it for 50 and 20 families. Here we have the cost of district heating operation over one year time, and the costs are compared with our system, and the NPV. Next slide, please. Excuse me. Next slide. Next slide. The NPV value is calculated for 50 families and 20 families. For 50 families, it is possible to observe that the district heating system is the biggest competitor, because after 8 years there is a zero value of NPV, but for smaller, the return is after the NPV value is positive after 8 years using the gas system. However, compared to biomass and other sources, it is the positive NPV values between 6 and 8 years, but for the typical heat pump, after 4 years. Next slide, please. In fact, we have quite big market for our solution. Residential buildings, hotels, shopping centers, and agricultural companies. And this kind of, what is the major advantage of our system is that it's possible to be applied for various sizes of the buildings. Of course, it's best to have it from 7 apartments to 100, for example, but normally it's from 7 to 50 apartments. And if we, for example, sell this the one unit for 100,000 euro with the very low, with 2% penetration rate, we can. This system has a very big potential in field of financial outcome. Next slide, please. So, what we need in our project, we need to improve our business model. We need to find the partners which will be able to help us to distribute the solution to the entire Europe. We need to also build the services models for our systems. It means the maintenance of the system around the European Union. We need to improve the system design for various buildings, because we have tested it for floor heating, but in case of radiators heating, the system must be more efficient, and the ground regeneration should be more also efficient to achieve very high COP. Also, we need to perform the transient optimization of the system. It means how the system behavior can be optimized during the time of operation to consume as low electrical energy as possible. And we are planning 3 demonstrations in 2 different climatic zones, 2 in Poland, 1 in Italy. Also, all the data from this demonstration will be available online to the dedicated platform, and we will perform the energy flow measurements to validate it for the buildings, residential buildings.
5 more minutes.
Next slide, please. I am finishing now. And this is the last slide regarding the budget. So to complete this project, we need to have 2.5 million euro of the total funding, and in general, this will allow to optimize the system and adjust it to the residential buildings. It allows to develop 3 highly measured, equipped and measured demo sites, 2 in Italy, 1 in Poland, are planned to test both heating and cooling, and also project promotion. What is also important, our industrial partners will provide at least 30% of own contribution, and this is quite important. And after, we are expecting that one unit will cost around 110,000 euro, and the positive value for NPV value for 50 families residential building in Krakow will be 100,000 euro after 10 years. Thank you very much for your attention.
Thank you, Pavel, very much. Appreciate it. Okay, while we switch over slides next to the city of Warsaw, we'll take just 1 minute, and I will introduce Jacek Kisiel, excuse me, to unmute himself, and he'll have up to 15 minutes to present the city of Warsaw's project. And it's coming up now, so take it away, Jacek.
Thank you very much, Thomas. I will show my presentation all together with Marcin Morawski. And at the beginning, I will ask Marcin to show the first slide. Marcin, are you with us?
Yes, yes, I am. Thank you very much, Jacek. Good afternoon, everyone. I hope you are fine. I would like to briefly present you our 3 main directions, our 3 main strategic actions that we are working on. Can I ask for the next slide, please? Okay, so our first goal is clean air in the city of Warsaw. We would like to achieve air quality standards till 2030. We are now concentrated on elimination of coal in the city. So starting from 2023, the coal burners will be illegal in Warsaw. We also are working on building a very complex air quality measuring network. We will have 170 units that will measure air quality. And we are also investing a lot in electrical transport, which means that very soon this year we will have 160 electrical buses in Warsaw. We also work on reduction of GHG emissions. Our aim is to reduce CO2 by 40% in 2 years. We also have, we are preparing the city to climate changes. We have our own Adapt City strategy plan. Now we develop working programs. We work on details. And there is a program called 1 Million Trees for Warsaw, which speaks for itself. I will not comment it. And before I will ask Jacek to present our idea concerning park and ride strategy, I would like to draw your attention that with this project, we will not only reduce GHG emissions, but this will have very positive educational impact, and in my opinion has a power to change habits of our citizens. So Jacek, please present what we would like to say.
Thank you, Marcin, very much. So I will describe you shortly the idea of park and rides in Warsaw. So as you can see on this map, currently there are 16 parks and rides in Warsaw. They are located next to metro station, railway station, bus or tram stops. So drivers can leave their cars for free and continue their journey with public transport. So in this way, they contribute to the improvement of air quality and to the reduction of GHG emissions. So parking at park and rides is free of charge, but parkings are not always full. This is our problem. So in order to fill them with cars, we have to somehow catch the drivers who travel by car to the city center. And how to catch them? So we want to achieve it in two ways. First, by raising parking fees, which is quite negative incentive. And the second, by providing the possibility to charge e-car with pure energy from renewable sources, produce it on the spot. Why this is crucial, this pure renewable energy? Because if you buy a car, e-car in Poland, you want to be climate friendly, yes? But if you charge this car with the energy from the conventional electricity grid, you charge it with a dirt energy, which comes from 80% from coal. So it does not make any sense. But if you charge your electric car with pure and renewable energy, it started to make a sense. And that's our point. So please, next slide. As you can see, this is the location of our pilot project, Połczyńska Park and Ride. Yeah, next slide, please. So, Połczyńska pilot project. We are starting with the Warsaw Park and Ride for Climate program with a pilot project called Połczyńska Park and Ride. Połczyńska Park and Ride was developed in 2007 as a second park and ride in Warsaw and is one of the larger projects. It can accommodate 500 cars. The modernization of Połczyńska Park and Ride will consist of installation of photovoltaic cells with peak power up to 100 kilowatts. The produced energy will be transmitted. Please, next slide. Okay, so the produced energy will be transmitted to the energy bank, energy storage, and from which it will be supplied to the lighting of the parking, to the heat pump in the technical building, and to the charging points for electric vehicles. So we are planning to install 4 charging points and build technical infrastructure which allows to create more charging points in the future. So drivers will be able to leave their cars for charging while they are at work. The project includes also replacement of, so please next slide. Oh, okay, thank you. So the project includes replacement of lighting with energy efficient LED lamps and installation of energy management system. In the technical building, electric radiators will be replaced with the heat pump, which will be used not only for heating, but also for cooling in the summer. These solutions will contribute to the overall reduction of energy consumption by this park and ride. And next slide. But also we will give something to the adaptations solutions. A natural retention tanks will be created in order to adapt the project to the climate change. We will also extend green infrastructure, for example, by creating green roof and by planting some new shrubs. The technical building will be converted into thermal comfort zone during heat waves, so the citizens from the neighborhood, especially the elderly, can hide from the high temperature. So additionally, we will develop an educational program for students so that they can observe how sustainable solutions work in practice. So this is the idea of our pilot project, and let's go to the selection criteria. Thank you. So as we are talking about GHG emissions, there will be two sources of the reduction of emissions. First source will come from the reduction of energy consumptions, and it will be annually 33 tons of carbon dioxide. And second source will come from use of renewable energy from photovoltaics and the heat pump, and it is another 61 tons of carbon dioxide. So the total annual reduction of emission is 94 tons. And if we potentially scale up this project to the remaining 15 park and rides in Warsaw, the number will be 1,500 tons of carbon dioxide. As we are talking about innovation, so I think that particular elements of the project, such as photovoltaic cells, heat pump, or energy bank, and is not maybe such innovative like the ones we heard in Krakow and Vienna, but I think that real innovation is our idea of integrated system of these solutions for park and ride facilities, which allows them to adapt to the climate change. Of course, I will be happy when other cities can adopt that solution in their park and rides or just in their parking lots. As we are talking about project maturity, the project was formally approved by our Mayor Advisory Board in the last year and Warsaw Steering Committee of E-Mobility also last year. But what is most important that it's March 19, project was approved by the City of Council, and we have the financial from our own budget. Now, Public Transport Authority, which is investor in that project, is preparing a public tender for designing documentation. As we are talking about scalability of this project, there is in fact two ways how the project could be scalable. One is that we can scale up this project in Opolczyńska by adding another photovoltaic cells and another charging points. And another way of scalability is to scale up this project to another parking lots in Warsaw, or even by bus and trams terminals in Warsaw. So the scalability of this project is quite high. And when we are talking about the cost efficiency, our project benefits will be power consumption for lighting reduced by 75%, heat pump cost of heating and cooling reduced by 70%, and benefiting from variable fees like supply of power to the grid at high prices, also possible to take it back with another location owned by the City of Warsaw. And so that's the reduction of cost of energy for the city. Next slide, please. When we're talking about project financing and bankability, so the project is planned to be financed by 100% from the public funds, I mean the budget of City of Warsaw. Project implementation will start in this year and we will finish in 2022. Total value is 3.7 million of Polish zlotys, which is a little less than 1 million euro. So the first stage, which take place in this year, will be the cost of development of designing documentation. And second stage will be the cost of construction works, delivery, installation, and activation of the whole infrastructure in the years 2021 and 2022. The project is expected not only to be positive in terms of sustainability, but also to be bankable. So bring substantial financial benefits from savings and the revenues. So the savings, I told you previously, will be the installation of LED lamps, installation of heat pump, variable fees for the energy, day and night tariffs, and smart energy management system. The revenues, fees for charging electric cars, initially charging will be free of charge, but along with the projected boost of e-mobility in Poland, charges will be introduced. So initially, the only 4 charging points, but however, in the future, there is possibility to scale up with the 50 charging points or even 100 charging points on that plot. And also we are maybe we are projecting to establish a special revolving fund in Warsaw when the savings generated in the projects in the field of sustainable development will be gathered and will be then financed another sustainable projects. Next slide, please. So at the end, I want to show you how the project fits Warsaw sustainable strategy, Warsaw sustainable development goals. So in the fields of clean air, about which Marcin told you before, so here we got photovoltaic cells, electric vehicle chargers, and the heat pump, which replace conventional source of heating. Next slide. Thank you. When we are talking about GHG emission reduction, there is a retrofit of external lighting, smart energy management system, and energy storage. And when we are talking about adaptation to the climate change, here we have a rainwater retention tank, and educational program, and thermal comfort zones. So that's how the project fits all our main sustainable development goals. So thank you very much. And please, next slide, where there are some our email addresses. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much to both of you. I appreciate that. Let's move right along as we're shifting presentations to the fourth and final presentation, which is from the city of Malmo. The presenters are with E.ON, Peter Bern, and Boris Kleeman. Gentlemen, I'll allow you to unmute and join the conversation. And here comes the presentation. Thanks very much.
Great. Thank you so much, Thomas. And also thank you for all this very inspiring presentation and the opportunity we have here to present our project ID, Deep Geo. So my name is Peter Berne. I work with our City Energy Solutions business within E.ON, the utility company in Sweden. And I will go through what we are doing in Malmö at the moment, and also my colleague Boris, who will assist and join the presentation, bringing also the international perspective. Perhaps you would like to say some words already now, Boris.
Absolutely. Thank you, Peter. Thank you, everybody. Boris, my name. I work for the headquarters of E.ON in Germany. I'm responsible to plan and design publicly funded project, especially on technology transfer, and I will take care of the scaling part of this project and also this presentation today.
Very good. Thank you, Boris. So jumping into it, we are in the midst of carrying out what we call a test hole project for deep geo energy, and it's with a technology called engineered geothermal systems. And this is happening now in Sweden, in Malmö, and it's a project in cooperation with the city of Malmö, one of the Climate-KIC deep demonstrator cities. We are also doing this phase of the project together with a number of world-leading experts, both in drilling technology, where we work closely with the company ST1. They are actually not so far off in commissioning the first DPO EGS plant in Espoo, Finland. We are also working with other world leading in terms of seismic analytics and also in terms of geotechnics. And our target is to deploy and develop the first deep geothermal plant in Malmo by 2020, delivering heat directly into the district heating network of Malmo. And the city of Malmö has a quite well-developed district heating grid, delivering approximately 2.4 terawatt hours annually. And yeah, we believe that this technology could and will be a real game changer for sustainable urban energy solutions. And not only in Sweden, but also in other similar areas where we have dry hot rocks and crystalline bedrocks in non-volcanic areas. So perfect. Moving forward, I think you can press forward once more. Thank you so much for that. So this describes the phase that we are in now and the test hole project. And that consists of 4 different drillings. 2 of the drilling is geophone holes reaching down to 1,000 meters. We also have a geophone array reaching down to 2,000 meters. And the idea with the geophones is to measure and gather the sound waves that are created from the test hole drilling. And that is done with hammer drilling technology, which creates this sound waves in the bedrock. And the geophone collects those sound waves. And through that, we could analyze and create 3D models of how the bedrock looks quite deep down in the bedrock. So what we believe is that by drilling the test hole down to 4,000 meters, we could actually model the bedrock down to 10,000 meters. And through that, we could gather critical information about the thermal properties of the bedrock, the fracture zones, and so forth, in order to actually design in more detail, how the EGS solution will be designed and where we would do the final drilling. So you could say that this is a pre-study for moving forward with a full-scale plant, and the drillings here will not be part of the planned full-scale solution. If we move forward, the next slide, please. Perfect. I think we missed one slide there, perhaps. Maybe there's a delay on my computer here, so sorry for that. Okay, there we go. Okay, one more back, sorry. Perfect. So this quite simple sketch will show how the EGS plant works in operation, and it's quite simple. You pump down cold water, and that is then heated up by the bedrock up to what we estimate 140 degrees Celsius. And we believe that we will find these temperatures down on 7 kilometers depth in the bedrock. And estimates of the first plant in operation is that the heat exchanging area will be 1 cubic kilometer in the bedrock. So moving to the next slide, please. So we really believe that this has a potential to be a game changer for urban energy solutions, and we believe that this fits very well also to the objectives for the Innovation Fund. What is really interesting when we can reach this depth is that we get high enough temperature that we could feed it directly into our district heating grids. We also have the potential to produce some power with the solution through organic Rankine cycles. And this has a huge potential. The International Energy Agency, they have analyzed that the energy on these depths correspond to 50,000 times the energy on the Earth's total assets of oil and gas. So if we could unleash this potential in a commercial viable way, it has a huge potential to lead a transition of our urban energy systems. And if so, it can then provide 100% renewable energy, non-combustible and very space efficient. We believe that, or we know that we can actually create these solutions under a normal building, just having the heat exchanger units to our district heating grid. Even if the plant is very spacious underneath the ground, above ground we don't need much space at all, and it's also not weather dependent, providing steady supply 365 days a year. So if we, I think you can press start with one time, please. Perfect. Thank you so much. So our target with this is to develop the test hole methodology, and with that we can I think that is key to scale this solution. And our plan now is to as I said, is to build the first plant in Malmö and have that into operation by 2022. The load and the power is estimated to 40-50 megawatts, and that would then correlate to a supply of 200 to 250 gigawatt hours on an annual basis. And then that would then mean that we, with this EGS DPO plant, could supply 10% of the district heating demand in Malmö. So before handing the word to Boris, I just want to emphasize that this is super exciting, we think, and it's due to a number of technology leaps that has been happening recently, that we see that the maturity is to really focus on this technology and to build up the know-how and the knowledge in order to scale it. So happy to discuss this more forward, and giving the word to Boris.
Thanks, Peter. Yeah, the demonstration project that Peter just outlined fits timing-wise quite well to the first Innovation Fund round that was highlighted today in the second half of 2020. In terms of funding approach, the test hole project that Peter referred to, supported by the Swedish Energy Agency, will deliver the proof of concept and the basis for demonstration until late summer 2020. The first results will be there, and we will have a good basis to review technical feasibility and start preparing the production plant design in Q3 2020. The final production plant design will then be finished by the end of 2020, and of course the funding application for the Innovation Fund would come in the middle. In our demonstration project that will be setting up this deep geo plant in Malmö, we will then start drilling in May 2021 and have the commissioning of the plant in the end of 2022. After commissioning, we are planning an operational optimization phase from January 2023 onwards. As part of this, we measure and optimize the day-to-day operation of the plant in the dimensions of average heating output, availability of the plant, stability of operation, and maintenance needs. The target of this is to ensure full technical, operational, and economic viability after the Plant Innovation Fund project is completed. We think that we have a strong link to the criteria set forth by the ETS Innovation Fund. And I would like to give you a little bit of an order of magnitude here as a first indication. In terms of innovativeness, we seek to develop the first commercially viable, operationally stable and also EU-wide scalable deep geoplant based on hammer drilling and the hot dry rock methodology that Peter outlined. Concretely, that means that we aim to expand the scope of these projects sustainably to non-volcanic areas, as Peter said, i.e. to conditions that we have in most of Europe. In terms of TRL, technology readiness level, we seek at starting around 5 or 6 after the proof of concept and development, and aim for 8 in the end of the Innovation Fund project. In terms of CO2 reduction, the technology would provide a fully CO2 neutral base load enabled heat production. Quantified, we aim at reducing roughly around 30,000 to 40,000 tons per annum by this project alone. This is, of course, calculated against a very sustainable energy mix in Malmö that is already in place. We are mainly replacing biogas or bio-based generation here. We have to bear in mind. Of course, these figures in other countries, as we scale internationally, would look much higher as base and mid-load can be replaced. That still comes from fossil generation as of now. In terms of cost efficiency, our first very highly indicative figures are that we are seeking to invest 50 million of capex into this deep geoplant in Malmö. As I said, highly indicative, that has to be verified by the pre-study, and also this doesn't include OPEX for the operational stabilization phase yet, but it will unlock low run OPEX after the end of this proposed funding project of circa 10 euros per megawatt hour in a stable operation after the project. Again, this figure is very indicative and has to be heavily proven, really dependent on the conditions underground in the bedrock and crystalline structures. The technological viability will be, as said, shown by the test hole project. The aim of the demonstration project will be to reach economic viability and to be able to extrapolate the economic and technical feasibility to several areas in Europe as we scale. Next slide, please. Final slide. I don't see it here. Yeah, there it is. We plan scaling on 3 geographical levels, local, national, and international, and in 3 content dimensions: technical, regulatory, and economic. Very important for this is the city of Malmö's role as a front runner in technological innovation. They have shown in several EU and national funding projects that they actively use the city as a test bed for a number of development topics. This position of openness, of course, is a key basis for our project here. The aim of local scaling in Malmö is to commission 5 deep geoplants in Malmö by 2028 with a combined load of 250 megawatts and a heat supply of roughly around 900 gigawatt hours per annum. i.e. Almost half or 1/3 of the heat demand in Malmö. The second scaling dimension we see is national scaling within Sweden. Here we will explore opportunities in the 4 larger district heating system we operate as E.ON ourselves in Sweden, but also want to go beyond this through partnerships with other key market players. The third scaling dimension is international. Outside of Sweden, E.ON operates 350 district heating schemes, mainly in Germany, Poland, UK, which supply 11.4 terawatt hours of heat per annum. Here we see opportunities for deep geothermal installations, of course, to decarbonize existing heating systems very quickly. Moreover, we would like to use our market access and knowledge of energy markets in other EU member states where we are active in, such as Italy, France, Netherlands, Czech Republic, Slovakia, Hungary, and Romania, to identify simply further opportunities. Setup-wise, we are checking the possibility to define follower sites within the planned demonstrator project. I mean, this is a little bit like the logic of smart cities and communities calls you might know from Horizon 2020. And these follower sites will enable us to analyze scaling potentials in depth. The overall aim of the demonstration project that we propose here in terms of scaling is to develop the organizational capabilities and a methodology that we need to scale within Malmö and beyond. And we will do this across 3 content dimensions, as I said: technical, regulatory, and economic. In the technical dimension, we aim at enabling as much as possible generalizable and extrapolatable information on technical properties, thermal properties, fracture zones, bedrock types and structures underground, as well as conditions for drilling, seismic conditions, and hydraulic properties. In the regulatory dimension, we focus on different preconditions for environmental permits, as they are key, of course, for the feasibility. And there you have different legal structures already regionally and also internationally that needs to be analyzed. And in the economic dimension, we analyze the influence different market regimes, especially power price structures that are key, as we have a lot of pumping need have on the viability, but also other cost structures like wages and supply chain related topics and availability of material, drilling rigs, and so on, that is important for the feasibility. As a result of our demonstration project, we will then define concrete scaling and rollout plans for the follower sites. With this, we really seek to ensure EU-wide reach and magnitude of the project. And we do believe that we can truly have a flagship initiative in our hands here of decarbonizing heat with pan-European value. Thank you.
Thank you very much, gentlemen. So we are going to transition right quickly into the panel discussion and have as much dialogue as the time will allow. I believe we started a few minutes late as people were joining, which is inevitable. We'll carry on a bit past 3 o'clock. As we're able, we know people will have to drop out, and we'll remind you the recording will be made available to everyone who's registered and be able to share, and we'll be able to share our presentations as well at your request. So what I'd like to do, first I'm just going to introduce the panel, welcome them in. They have a bit of a structure for us to get started in the conversation. So I'll ask all 3 to unmute themselves, and when they speak, I guess you can choose whether to turn your camera on or not for the benefit of the rest of the folks on the call. Welcome back, Christian. I'm going to welcome Robert Pernetta from the European Investment Bank, who works in advisory services, as well as Rupesh Medlani with Bankers Without Boundaries. And what I would like you to do, in the interest of sort of some structure and time to make this a substantively valuable panel discussion, is to get a bunch of information and reactions into this space as quickly as possible. So I want to do 2 things. One, I'll ask each of you to take 2 minutes to share your observations based on the presentations, and then you'll each take 2 minutes to do that, and then I'll come back around with each of you to present one question back to one of the cities, or to more than one of the cities as appropriate, but depending on the question. We may or may not have time to deal with them in terms of answering those questions on the call, but we'll follow up with all questions. We're capturing all of the questions that are put into the chat as well. Once we've gotten those questions there, I will moderate us through a conversation to try to add some value to some of the projects as well as to the broader conversation. So we appreciate everyone's time and patience, and we're happy to have you join. And again, I think this will be a nice way to round out the presentation. So I think in order, I'll ask Christian to maybe go first. Then Robert, you can go second, and Rupesh third. If you'd like to defer to later in the sequence, just let me know. So Christian, take it away.
Yes, thanks. Thanks very much, Thomas. Yeah, I think that like the presentations really showed the breadth or the range of projects for the Innovation Fund. Like with the deep geothermal, I think this is something we are definitely interested in to really go to the boundaries of what has been done up to now, and also for like the first two, I think anything combined energy storage, how to get in more renewables and energy efficiency in buildings. I think this is something we are very much interested in. And I think this is not only the Innovation Fund, but I think the Commission will also soon come out with an initiative on a renovation wave, which can also be very, very useful. I think what also from what I would be very interested in is like if these energy efficiency buildings, energy storage projects, I mean, if we could really have their project at a large scale, like a whole new quarter of a city or something like this, that would be also really, really exciting. Maybe one comment on, I found the Park and Ride project also very interesting, because I think it's a neat one that you can really roll out and maybe sell also to other cities. So, I mean, we are also have the possibility under the Innovation Fund to do a specific call for small scale projects. So for projects with investments up to 7.5 million euros. And we will probably launch this later this year or early next year. And there I could really see this, like for a city that for the first time would like to do such a multifunctional park and ride, that could be something very nice to roll out over Europe. So yeah, I was very pleased to see all these projects. So
excellent. Thanks so much.
Thanks.
Yeah, thanks so much, Christian. We'll look forward to bringing you back for one of your questions at least. So, Robert, if you would, take it away. Thanks so much.
Yeah, thank you very much for having me on this conference. And I appreciate these projects very, very much. It shows really how cities can move the change that comes in Europe, the Green Deal, and reaching the carbon neutrality. And one point that came up several times was the economic viability and the bankability. And my experience from the EIB is you only know if you're bankable once you talk to a banker. So what maybe makes sense at home on your spreadsheet is a different thing with a banker. And that's, I think, where the hub can help you. Not only, it also can address technical aspects and legal aspects, but very much is you can use the bankers within the EIB and the engineers and the economists within the EIB to provide you support. And our bankers would look like, would we invest and what would we require? And I think this can help the project in a short time really to go ahead. From the EIB, we have provided support in a similar term already to cities. There is a platform currently operating. It's called Urbis. There we have done renewable energy projects, energy efficiency, smart cities also very much. I think they can also very much be linked with low carbon technology. And that's it. And if you want to know about the advisory hub, I can only tell you how the current advisory hub looks like. but it is easy accessible. Often it's enough just to go on the website, fill out the form. There are no ground calls, or you just send the email to someone you know who works for the hub. Thank you.
Thanks very much, Robert. Rupesh.
Thank you very much, Thomas. Congratulations to all the cities. I know it's a lot of hard work to kind of get to this point, and I know a lot of work has gone into it. I have basically got about 25 questions, and I know that there's only a little bit of time. So I will just go for one question per city, and I will post the rest of my questions to chat, and I hope some of those questions would help. So for Vienna, I would say, what do we think the technology and execution risks are in particular for scaling? For Krakow, I would say the discount rate of 2%, where did that come from? Is the 30% secure? And what's a 100,000 promotion for? I know that's 3, but if I said it quickly, I hope that's one question. Warsaw, the 4 EV charging points, how does that compare to current requirements? And then what's the marginal cost of adding more charging points? You say that that can go to 50 to 100. It would be great to see, you know, is by making this intervention, does that dramatically reduce the marginal cost for more? And for Malmo, I would say there weren't many numbers in there, so one wonders how is it going to be funded? How is a scale up, more importantly, going to be funded? And do you think this is something that E.ON's balance sheet would provide? Let me pause there.
Thanks very much, Rupesh. I just want to invite Robert and Christian to come back with a question or two for each of these panelists as well. While we're doing that, I think one of my questions to a few of the projects, particularly where we're looking at deploying a solution in a particular building category, like a housing type of a building, are there opportunities in a geographic place to look at the benefits to a project scale and scope and economics by looking at multiple buildings of different types where load diversification can bring benefits in terms of efficiency, but also varying load duration curves, which allow for the same resource to potentially cover more total annual demand. That's not a question that's easy to answer here, I recognize, but I think as we look at these projects and how they can replicate and scale, it's a question for you all to carry away. So Robert, maybe start with you if you have a question you'd like to present to one of these projects.
Yeah, for Krakow, I'm asking how you're addressing the issue of multi-apartment buildings, because in Poland, each family is owner of its own apartment. And how do you want to do such comprehensive